I'm working on some hand-embroidered felt dogs that are pins and or necklaces, and these are the beginning of what will turn into something similar to this. They're very rough at the moment, but trust me, they're going to be fine. And I'm going to show you some of the steps along the way. They each get their little bed. I love this particular felt, and I have felted it further. It's a part wool content felt, and so to felt it means you've made it denser, thicker, and it's just got a wonderful texture to it. Once I've cut the basic shape out, I do like to go back in and edit it some. Okay, now, usually the first anchoring thread that I use is going to be one that's this medium taupe, and with that I've got to put in the toenails. Because even though these are little white dogs, oh, there's a zillion shades of white on them, and tans and browns and so forth. Okay, I'm just going to jump over here, and I need a little bit of definition between this leg that's in the forefront, that leg is in the background. Just putting a little bit of a shadow with this thread. And if you'll notice, I'm using only one strand of embroidery floss. Embroidery floss comes with 6 strands, and I've separated them just to use one, which means a lot of fine detail. It's much more subtle. These are essentially freehand. Their shapes are all going to be different because I've trimmed on the shape. This one, I'm going back to give the tail a little bit more of a saucy. And this is this is not the lightest color I use, but it is one of the lighter colors I use on the Westies. So there's no stitch pattern, no set order of what I do first, no set order of which colors even. There will be slight differences, but that's kind of what makes them unique and special. This particular one, I'll run out of thread before I run out of things that I want to stitch in this thread color, and that's fine, but sometimes I run out of the stitches before I run out of the thread that's on my needle. That's when I hop behind and I pick up the next one and I do a little bit of those stitches on that one. Or this was a different one. I had just enough pink to do his ears. Well, probably it was enough pink to do his ears and enough pink to do his ears. But I only had enough black to do his nose and eyes. So it's a way to save some effort. This is where we're headed, from this little feller to that little fella. And tails are different. Body stretch is different. But that's okay. I call this my thread nebula. A nebula is where stars are born. And so this is the place where embroidered felt dogs are born. And I keep looking in the nebula, the thread nebula, until I either find my color thread that I'm looking for, or I have to go back to one of my other cards, one of my other rings full of colors that I use in these felt dogs. And you'd be surprised how many colors actually work their way in. But this is the fun part to me, playing with colors. And this little fella is just about finished and waiting for his Christmas string of lights. And there was a limited edition of just 25 of this design, so it'll have to be something different for next Christmas. Now this little fella needs the rest of his nose. And then he gets a pair of eyes. And the little eyes have evolved over time, and so they'll probably still be evolving a month from now or a year from now, but they are fun to do. And there is no pattern for this. I just do it. And I love to encourage other people to just let go of the inhibitions of, oh, I need a pattern, oh, I need a pattern. And just create. And if you make a mistake, big deal. Now, one thing that will come back and add a little highlight of white thread when I get around to doing white thread on them. Have a little highlight in the eye, which you can see right there. Here's another one. So as you can see, my little eyes and noses are different every time, but they still capture the cuteness of the little Westie. Now this one will have a red hat. This one still has to have his little Christmas string of lights. This little fella has his Christmas hat, and I've just about finished the fur on the Christmas hat, and then I'll go back and do the red. But while I'm in this vicinity, I need to give his little eye a bit of sparkle. And so I'm going to jump over here and make sure that my thread goes over at least one or two black threads, otherwise it just disappears. Yep, that should be enough sparkle. And then I'll jump over to his nose. Give him a little tiny bit of sparkle on his glistening sweet nose. And then I can, since this is white thread that I'm using for the, which is one of the top colors, one of the finishing colors, I'll just work my way around his little beard, around his little hair, back to the hat, and finish it. And this little fella gets a string of Christmas lights that will look like that, so I just dart up here in his mouth, some logical place for his mouth. I have no pattern for this. So if I had taken a picture of every one I've made so far, it would have shown a striking difference. Do a little running stitch to put in the Christmas lights, and it will go in different directions. These were a limited edition of 25 for this design and 25 for the Westie with the little red Santa hat, and those have all sold. And there's still, I think, a limited edition available for some of the cairns. As soon as I finish all of these orders, I'll tally up and see where we stand. This probably looks like a white thread. It's really not. It's not the brightest white I use on the Westies. It's a creamy white, and it does make a difference. It doesn't look like it right now, but it does make a difference. I've already got his little hat on. I'll come back and do red thread to tack that part down. He's got a little fur on his hat. So now it's just a matter of doing the different shades of white and then some colors for depth. And this little fellow will be finished. This green background felt has been a joy, absolute joy to work with. It is a part wool content. I felted the felt, which means it makes it thicker and denser. And it's just a beautiful color. So now what I'm doing is giving a new back to the little pin. It gives a little more stability. It covers all the multitude of little threads, and it's at this time, or right before, I've gotten so much sewn up that I could have put a little lock of hair from that particular person's dog if they'd wanted it. It's just a free option if somebody wants that. And I really like to include the ones I've done for us and for our little Christmas tree have had little locks of hair from our Westies. So now this green thread that matches the background color sort of helps define the hair a little bit better. I can come in between colors and just, it makes it look like there's the hair, it defines it. And then of course when I get just a little bit more done, I'll be through with that, I'll trim it, and then we'll put on the pin in the back that I'll show you in a minute. And this little fella has his string of Christmas lights, and he's been trimmed around and his back is on, and I've put the label on him. I keep talking about getting some special fancy woven labels, but quite frankly I rather enjoy the homemade ones because it is appliqued with the turn under fabric, needle turn applique, which I just crease it when I cut off my little piece and then turn it under, and then it's a matter of sewing the pin on very securely. I'm rather a stickler for that. So I'm going to hide the little tail ends of the fabric, of the thread, the knots that I just put in. And I'm using the double thread. Okay. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 places that this is stitched on very securely. So this pin back is not going anywhere unless you cut it, specifically cut it to get it off of there. The pin back has been securely attached. It's been checked to make sure it does work, and it does, of course. And the homemade garment label, if you will. And here's where I get to write on the back that this is number 21 of the issue of 25. That was a limited edition of just 25. Of course, it is a copyrighted design. I get to put my signature. Penny Sanford Designs. And there you have one of a limited edition of 25, but since it's all hand-stitched and handmade, it's very different than anybody else. And he's ready to go.